Lions has provided an ever-intriguing subplot to this year's Six Nations. All of us, every week, have been keeping an eye out for players who are putting their hand up for test selection, for the captaincy, and also for selection in the full squad. Of course, we have big games to come in the shape of the latter stages of the Heineken Cup, the Premiership final, and of course the top 14 final. But here is my Lions 15 for that first test against Australia in Brisbane on June the 22nd, along with who I think should be in the full squad. So, starting at fullback, we have Leigh Halfpenny. Throughout the tournament, it's been between Halfpenny and Stuart Hogg for me, but because of his performance against England under the high ball, I think Leigh Halfpenny has secured that jersey for himself, and I've also chosen Rob Kearney to tour at fullback. On the right wing, I've chosen Alex Cuthbert of Wales. After bagging 2 tries against England, he finished the tournament as top try scorer with 4 in 5 matches. Also, I've got Craig Gilroy of Ireland there as a backup and possible test candidate. On the left wing, I've gone with a controversial choice. I've gone with Tim Visser of Scotland. I was very tempted to go for an all-Welsh back 3 and pick George North, but I don't think the 20-year-old battering ram has had quite as good a tournament as we'd hoped. North is my backup and may well, of course, force himself into the test side, but I'd really like to see Visser flourish in a world-class backline. As a wildcard shout, I'll chuck in a word for Wasps flyer Christian Wade. At outside centre, I've gone with Brian O'Driscoll. I still believe that despite a horror show against Italy, he is the man to play 13. My only worry is that his loss of pace could be exposed by the Australian backline. The Lions need a leader on the field, they need a leader in the backs, and there's no one better than Brian O'Driscoll. Backing him up is Jonathan Davis in my tour squad. At inside centre, I've picked Jamie Roberts, reuniting that fantastic centre partnership of 2009. The big doctor needed a good game against England and he duly delivered, and I've got England's Manu Tuilagi challenging him for that inside centre berth. Fly half. Despite being injured, I've gone with Ireland's Johnny Sexton because he's simply the most consistent. If he gets back to any sort of match fitness, then he will tour and he's most likely to start at 10. Fly half is a very, very big call for Warren Gatland because in my opinion, none of the candidates are actual world-class players. The man who's picked is going to go up against Quade Kruper or possibly even the Brumbies' Christian Lealifano, and whoever gets the nod to wear the red of the Lions will not be nearly as creative and spontaneous as their opposite man in an Aussie shirt. I also want to chuck in a word for Freddie Burns. I think he could possibly tour as a wild card, but my 3 fly halves are Johnny Sexton, Dan Biggar and Freddie Burns. At scrum half, I've picked Mike Phillips. He had his best game of the Six Nations against England and he was back to his aggressive, annoying and influential best. He started all 3 Lions tests, of course, in 2009 and I'll be hungry to reclaim that jersey. It's a very tough call between him and Ben Youngs and it kind of depends how the Lions want to play in Australia. And I've also given Greg Laidlaw a berth at number 9. Moving on to the pack and starting in the front row, I've gone with Ireland's CIAN HEALY at number 1. His red mist moment against England aside, I think HEALY has the best mix of scrummaging ability and ball-playing nous at prop. Backing him up is Gethin Jenkins, who had a huge game against England, and also Scotland's Ryan Grant. Those 3 should fight it out nicely on tour. At hooker, it was an extremely tough call, this one. Richard Hibbard gets the nod for the moment after some strong showings against both Scotland and England at the tail end of the championship, but Ireland's Rory Best will be determined to showcase his ability in the Heineken Cup with Ulster, while Tom Youngs and Dylan Hartley are not out of the running. Adam Jones is my man in the number 3 shirt. He absolutely destroyed Joe Marler at scrum time in Cardiff, and it's great for the Lions that he's found form at the right time. Don't discount Scotland's Ewan Murray, and also Dan Cole of England I feel deserves a spot on the plane. Into the second row, and I've gone with Alan Wynne-Jones, another Welsh Lion. He takes my number 4 shirt after a display against England. I had seriously high hopes for England's Joe Launchbury, but he hasn't quite backed up his autumn form in this year's championship, but I do still think that England's young guns should tour. The other second row berth, I've gone for Richie Gray of Scotland. He was penned into most people's Lions side before the tournament began, and he should hopefully recover from injury in time to be considered. On the fast grounds of Australia, the giant Scot could be a revelation. He's had a quieter Six Nations than he would have hoped, but he's a big game player, and they don't come bigger than the Lions test match. I also want to throw in a shout for Courtney Laws in this position. I think his athleticism and his aggressiveness could see him make a huge impact. Onto the back row, and this is possibly the most competitive area of them all. At 6, I've chosen Tom Croft. The returning flanker has only just got back from injury, but is a class act, and England's best forward when he's on form. Bit of game time with Leicester, and that'll see him get on the plane. If Ireland's Stephen Ferris was fit, he would be my number 6. Kelly Brown and Dan Lydiot, if he gets back to fitness, make up the other options at blindside for maximum variety. But don't forget Ireland's Sean O'Brien. At number 7, it's a dead heat between Sam Warburton and Justin Tipuric, but for me, the Ospreys man is just edging it after that performance at the Millennium Stadium. What a battle it could be with him and Warburton, and also Toulon-based Stefan Armitage gets a place in my squad. At number 8, Jamie Heaslip was the front runner for most people before the Six Nations, but he suffered with the burden of captaincy, and Ireland's injury list really didn't help him as well. A controversial choice perhaps, but I'm going with Scotland's Johnny Beattie. On the hard grounds of Australia, I think he's the best man with ball in hand, and he couples that well with some really aggressive defence and ball carrying. Toby Faletau is not far behind, and of course one of those two could probably edge it on tour for a test spot, but for the moment, I'm going with Johnny Beattie at 8. Yes, there is an abundance of Welshmen in my Lions 15, but they won the championship, so I don't think you can argue with that. Come the end of April when the squad is picked, chances are I will have completely changed my mind, and you will have too. That's the beauty of picking your own Lions 15. I expected to include more Englishmen in my side, but when it came down to it on paper, I really struggled to justify any of their selections ahead of their counterparts in the British Isles. I think England are a very good side collectively, but individually they just don't have the star men that Wales do, or even perhaps Ireland do. But anyway, let me know what you think of my Lions selection. Tweet me at TMACSport, and also let me know if you disagree or agree with my choices.